Welcome to Brewsers, podcast about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. I am your host, Rody John, and today we talk to Coach Greg Jones about Kill Cliff Fight Club, being a 3-time Division I wrestling champion, and what he loves about being a coach. This is such a fun interview. This is my first coach interview, and I cannot wait because this is one of the best coaches out there right now. Not only was he a collegiate wrestling coach, but he's also a amazing MMA wrestling coach. So you don't want to hear from my mouth, you want to hear from his. But first, make sure to sign up for our newsletter. That is, you can get even more information about our guests, figure out what's coming up on the show, and we're going to throw in little fun facts for you. So make sure to sign up for your new favorite newsletter from your favorite podcast. It's all about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. So without further ado, here is Coach Greg Jones. I'd like to welcome to the show Coach Greg Jones. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. I was just telling you are my first coach, and you are an unsung hero when it comes to people's journeys, when it comes to getting inside the cage and all the preparation that goes into it.
Well, I'm happy to be here, the first coach here chatting with you. I don't, not so sure about a hero, but we certainly put a lot of time, energy, and effort into it. So, just part of the journey, you know.
It's very true. Yeah, I mean, it's funny when people obviously they'll focus on the athlete inside the cage, but a lot of times they just don't think about all the preparation that goes into it beforehand, and people like yourself that really help them kind of break down. It's almost like it is a game plan, actually, as to what they need to do and what they should be doing while in the cage. But then again, there's always the Mike Tyson quote that everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. So,
right? No. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, that's just the nature of the kind of the meshing of sport and entertainment that we have going on here in MMA, right? That everything is and should be, athlete fighter focus. But there's a lot that goes into someone stepping foot inside the cage, and in a lot of ways, with no trainer, there is no athlete. So
right.
So things develop way before that point of performance that we all get to witness.
Right. So I guess we'll go here first. What's your earliest memory of martial arts?
Well, I've only I only competed in wrestling, so I guess some consider that as a martial art. And you know what? Until I started within MMA, I don't know if I necessarily considered wrestling as a martial art. But that's the extent of my martial art competitive experience. Of course, I was fortunate enough, 8 or 9 years ago, to link up with my partner Henry Hoof, and we've done a lot of cool things in MMA since then.
I mean, I would consider wrestling a part of the martial arts because it is part of the whole mixed martial arts, and
right.
I believe that one of the first UFCs they had an actual amateur wrestler come in, and now the fact that if you kind of don't have, well, I'll put it this way. A lot of some of the greats, I'm not going to say GOATs because I almost don't like that term anymore. First off, it's
I don't like it either. I'm with you there, brother.
Yeah.
It's way overused.
And
there's only
exactly.
one. Like, there's only one.
Yeah, exactly. It's in the name, greatest of all time. You can't be like, oh, well, he's a GOAT. Well, he's a GOAT.
Yeah.
No one's GOAT if that's the case.
Right.
But a lot of the greats have a base of wrestling. And, when you're in the cage, if you're getting shot on and you don't have any wrestling knowledge, it's not going to go well for you. You don't know how to defend. You don't know how to, not, be on your back when it comes to somebody shooting on you. Or if you try to go and shoot on somebody and you don't really exactly know what you're doing, once you're on the ground, if you get them there, what are you doing now? So I would kind of consider, wrestling a martial art because of the fact, again, it is part of the mixed martial arts field.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, that was a kind of a transformation for me as well whenever I came from collegiate wrestling over to MMA. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there's plenty of evidence to show that it's really, really hard to climb the ranks of the highest MMA organizations in the world without a certain level of wrestling know-how, experience, whatever you want to call it. But there's a big difference, between, I see it a lot in here, in MMA as well, too. There's a big difference between someone that wrestled at one point in their life and someone that is a wrestler. There's a vast difference of things that go into whether you want to say become anything, whether you want to be a wrestler or a tennis player, whatever it is it's a certain level of commitment and knowledge and understanding and competitiveness that goes along with being that. And I think you've seen, a lot of the other disciplines, people from a lot of the other disciplines garner a higher level of respect over the last several years with wrestling being at 1.5 of the champions, 6 of the champions, all had a wrestling base or a wrestling foundation. So, with me and how that comes out, that, I try to be, the best wrestling coach that I can possibly be, but with the team that we have, if I spend all my time focused on just wrestling and not really having, obviously there's some grappling carryover too as far as function and execution of the sport, but not really having a striking background whatsoever, that if I spend all my time in just within the box of wrestling, that I'm not being very useful or very productive for my athletes. So in a lot of ways, I've kind of grown and evolved to almost like a performance coach. So obviously my main function and priorities is wrestling, but I need to find other ways to use my unique skills and characteristics to get my guys where they need to be. And that's kind of where the area of my profession that I feel like I've perhaps grown the most in over the last several years.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, we'll go into it here in a minute, but you were, an absolutely decorated amateur collegiate wrestler. Then you went on to coach at the same school that you graduated from and made these records at, and then you made the transition over to MMA. So I imagine, there was a bit of a learning curve when it does come to just focusing on wrestling as opposed to wrestling being a factor and a part in the actual competition aspect of it.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. And like, from a physical standpoint, like the execution of physical skills, is obviously very important, but like, I spent a lot of time trying to teach wrestling to these guys, and I find myself running into a lot of barriers and a lot of walls, and them really just not picking up things how I thought they should. So I had to, I got to adjust my approach a little bit. So I'm not going to teach so-and-so how to be a wrestler, but if I can get them to move, read, and react like a successful wrestler would, and get from position to position as efficiently as possible, then that kind of fits in within that wrestling box as well too. So a lot of it's in the delivery of it, and the different situation and drills that we do and things like that.
Right. No, that makes sense. Now, going back to your wrestling collegiate career, you are, I could list off, you're one of so many, your Wikipedia there's a whole section just devoted to, you're one of, I'll name some of them off. You're one of 39 three-time NCAA champions, one of 20 wrestlers to win titles at 2 weight classes, one of 10 wrestlers to win a national championship as a freshman. Your career record, 126-4. I could go on and on. I'm not going to, even though it is a podcast, I could probably go forever. You have probably more things better to do with your time. But when you were, when did you first start wrestling in general?
Oh, I was a kid. I was very young. I've been wrestling for as long as well, my earliest memory, I was already wrestling, you know. So it was never one of those things, are you gonna wrestle this season for me? You know what I mean? You know, by the time I was old enough, you know, to realize that, you know, I had a little bit of control over what I could do and participate in, and wrestling was already part of my identity, was already part of who I was. And just my family during wrestling season, we just wrestled. You know, it was like there's not a question.
So when you did win, I guess I've been trying to debate how I want to ask this. When you win 3 Division I wrestling titles, your first one obviously is super exciting. Is the second and third as exciting, or is it to kind of you, not that expect it, but you're like, okay, this is for sure mine, and I know that, you know, I'm not going to have to worry about it? Or what's your mindset when after you win your first one, you're going for your second, and obviously, you know, your third one as well?
No, that's a very good question. I get that question a lot. You know, which one of your titles was the best, or which one felt better, or what you know, whatever. How you want to pose a similar question to that. And my answer is usually pretty the same. Is that, you know, they're all different. They all propose different and unique challenges within themselves from year to year. Of course, showing up as a freshman and putting myself in the NCAA finals, and then winning it will obviously also always be very special because it's the first time, right? The second title is different, very different in the sense that my sophomore year, I fell short. I didn't place in the national tournament at all. So that second one was sort of redemption in a way, and sort of validation in the sense, not necessarily to others, but within myself, that I am this caliber of wrestler, that I do belong in this elite circle. And then the third title was different in the sense because it was the last. You know, I spent my last 2 seasons undefeated, with my third national championship, winning outstanding wrestler of the NCAA tournament. You know, that tournament there is special in the sense that I don't know that last collegiate wrestling tournament I wrestled in was probably the most enjoyable and fulfilling wrestling experience I've ever had. The tournament was fun. I was relaxed, and I just kind of how I worked through the tournament, through the bracket, was just it's a really enjoyable experience.
Right. So
when you do something so young and so early, with at the time what seems like relative ease, you don't necessarily appreciate it. You know what I mean? So that kind of carried that into my sophomore year, and then after falling short, then obviously I certainly gained a certain level of appreciation in how to compete, how to earn your way back to the top.
Now, did you not want to go on the Olympics, or was it just something that wasn't in the cards, or what was going on with that?
No, I just started coaching. I wrestled for about a semester post college, but like you said earlier, I graduated in May, and upon graduating, I signed my first contract to be associate head coach at the university. So that posed a lot of challenges, not only in youth and experience, but also additional challenges about now coaching my former teammates and friends. So I knew I could be good at both. I just wasn't so sure that I could be good at both simultaneously. So I just jumped right into the coaching route. And, it's really one of the reasons why I was excited to migrate to MMA too. That I had several opportunities to compete at the highest level of sport. I'm not claiming that I was going to be an Olympic champion, but I was certainly one of the best. Sorry about the noise above. Certainly one of the best wrestlers in the country at the time.